All right, welcome to SIG Apps. Today is Monday, August 14th, and we have some announcements, updates, and demos for you all. Our first announcement and only announcement for today is that there was a request for, there were some questions around Helm during our last retro, so we wanted to set up one of the stand-ups as like a Helm Q&A. So to better organize that, we have like a doc for you. Thanks, Matt Farina, for putting this together. So if you go to the docs, or if you go to the meeting minutes for SIG Apps, you'll see the link to the doc, and I'll paste that in just a second in the chat as well. So that's our only announcement for today. With that, we'll go into updates from Kubernetes core. We don't have the areas listed, but let's start with deployments and go from there. And if you're not speaking, please mute. Okay, is there anyone who wants to give us updates from Kubernetes core? Okay, if you change your minds, we can come back to that at the end. Let's go into the demos. So our first demo is Kubernetes-deploy by Katrina Berry. And Katrina, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to show us today.
My name is Katrina Berry, and I work at Shopify. I'm on the Shopify's cloud platform team. We are building a platform as a service internally for Shopify's hundreds of different apps that it runs, both from its big, huge monolith, which is a Rails monolith that runs the actual Shopify application, down to all sorts of little tiny apps that do various things. So we want to build a unified platform for all those different apps, and we're using Kubernetes to do it. So what I'm going to show you today is a tool that we built as part of that platform to help our developers be able to deploy to our Kubernetes environment with confidence and to be able to know what's going on and address any problems that they might encounter during their deploy without resorting to our team. So let me see, screen share. Sorry, I haven't really used Zoom much before.
No worries, it should be the green button.
Okay, is that working? Do you see my screen?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay. Great, so this is an open source tool, and it's very unimaginatively named. If anyone has a better suggestion, that would be appreciated. And yeah, you can get it on GitHub at Shopify/Kubernetes-deploy. This is something that we built for use inside another open source tool called ShipIt, which is available at Shopify/ShipIt-engine. And it looks less like this. So that's a tool that manages revisions and can bash them together in deploys, handle rollbacks, locking, commits, and rollout. It has a merge queue, all sorts of different features like that. So what we needed to build was basically a script that ShipIt could use to run deploys for Kubernetes environment that produces a reliable pass-fail result so that it can take automatic or user-initiated action based on that pass-fail result. In some contexts, we are actually deploying up to 50 times a day, so we really need to know to stop the automatic deploys if something didn't work in a revision that just went out. So that's the context. And this is a tool that we're using in production already. We have upwards of 100 apps on our platform, and this is a screenshot showing our piece of our Datadog dashboard from the end of the day on Friday. So we deployed in production with the Kubernetes deploy utility over 300 times just on Friday alone. So this is something we're using a lot. Okay, so to get to the demo, do you now see my Sublime and terminal? Everyone see that okay? Okay.
Yep.
So what I'd like to show you is just go through a series of deploys, starting with something super simple, to show you what it looks like when we run the tool. So we're going to start off with a really simple, just like deployment service pair. Nothing fancy there, 3 replicas. And you can see we can use ERB in the templates if we want. You just tell it which namespace and context you want to target. That's based on a regular old kubeconfig, and which directory contains the files that you want to deploy. So this is deploying to Minikube here. You can see that right away it just goes ahead and finds out what you have in that directory, parses the templates, and validates them. It gives you an overview of what might already be in the cluster, and then tells you, it actually uses kubectl-apply for the actual deploy step itself, waits for everything to complete, and then gives you another summary, so you get that before after pictures. That's the really, really simple case. Is the font big enough to see? Yeah, okay. Okay, so moving on to something a little fancier. We have the same service and deployment now, but we are adding a config map and also a pod. So the use case we have for pods at Shopify is to sort of simulate tasks that we would have normally run in line during deploys. So the main one is like Rails migrations and asset uploads. We absolutely need those to happen and complete successfully before we proceed with rolling out any new Rails web pods, for example. So what we do is we launch a pod at the beginning of the deploy and wait for it to complete and dump its logs to accomplish that goal. So this is what that looks like. It starts off exactly the same. We discover what templates are in there. We give them the status. You can see that the deployment service is already there. But now we have a new step called the pre-deploy, where it makes sure that that config map that the pod is might need to consume is going to be available before we launch the pod. And we launch the pod itself and print its logs. And if that had actually failed, this is just a simple thing that prints the whole world, so it's not going to fail. But in the case where it fails, that would actually halt the deploy right away, and we wouldn't proceed with the rest of the steps in deploying the new version of the other resources. Another feature that we needed and we built in here is having to do with secrets. Since secrets are base64 encoded, standardly we're committing all these Kubernetes YAMLs to our repositories, but we don't want to commit the actual secrets just base64 encoded. That's not secure. We have another open source project called eJSON that lets you use encrypted eJSON to be able to commit those secrets to your repository. And what we do for our Kubernetes apps is we create them in eJSON key pairs, such as a public-private key pair, and we put it into their namespace. So I've done that in advance here. So this eJSON keys secret, that one contains the public-private key value pair that corresponds to this eJSON file here. And what this lets you do is basically commit your Kubernetes secrets to your repo in an encrypted form, and Kubernetes-deploy knows how to transform this into the type of secret that you requested with the data that you're requesting. So we deploy this one. Let's see that in action. So here you see we have another step before even the pre-deploy step, because we want those secrets again to be available to your pod, for example, if you're trying to launch a pod, where we fetch the private key from the secret, decrypt the secrets.json, and create those secrets. When we create them, we're using a similar mechanism to what kubectl-apply does itself, so that we can actually manage those secrets. And if you remove or add or modify the data in your secrets.json, we'll update your namespace to reflect it. So you end up with a namespace that looks exactly like your deploy directory at the end of the deploy. And then finally, the last case I want to show you is what happens when the deploy fails. So if you recall, we had over 280 successes on Friday, but also 35 failures. And it's really important that when we're declaring something a failure, it's because even though Kubernetes is going to retry forever to get that app into a good state, like there are some cases where say the app container is bad, it's crashing, it's not going to come up. It's just that's not reconcilable, and we need to get that information to our developers as quickly as we can. So here we go. There are going to be 2 examples of cases that would fail to deploy up front. One is just having some bad data in your config map here. That's some bad ERB. And if we go ahead and try to deploy that, you'll see we failed right at the initial stage. We don't let you proceed with trying to actually make changes to your namespace if we detect that the template's invalid. Not only do we give you the error, we show you the rendered template context to make it easier to debug, because if this really awful, messy ERB, it's much easier to see what's wrong when you actually see it printed out. So if we go ahead and fix that really quick, and we'll get to hit this error case, which is just trying to run busybox with a bad command. So that's never going to succeed, and we want to tell them quickly that that's the case. So far it's pretty normal, but we are able to detect after just 3.8 seconds that this is doomed, it's not actually going to succeed. So we tell them what we did. Again, you see the resource pruning actually happening now. And we tell them what failed, and the exit code we saw, the message we got back from Kubernetes about why that failed, and we pull in any events about the pod or things that are deployment or whatever it is that failed, and dump all of the logs from all the containers that are relevant to this. We found that this made a huge difference in letting our developers self-serve without coming to us about with either Kubernetes questions or for help on like what's going wrong. Because this gives them all the information they need to continue solving their problems on their own. So it's all right there in the deploy, then we have to go to their logging service. And the cases that are covered are based on, we started out really simple and we didn't have coverage for things like this, and most of the time we would hit a timeout. Basically the deploy would wait forever for Kubernetes to succeed, and then we just had like our hard 5-minute for deployment, for example, and after it said, well, it's probably not going to succeed. And then we kind of looked at the cases that people were encountering where the deploy was actually pretty much doomed. And we figured out how, looked into how we could actually detect those scenarios and service them for people with the helpful information. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the tool. Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, hi. For the tool itself, you said it's Shopify Kubernetes-deploy is the tool again on GitHub?
On GitHub, yeah. Here's the picture.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And yeah, contributions are welcome. We have a README that hopefully goes over some, explains it pretty well. If it doesn't, let me know. And we're working on it actively, and we have been for the past 6 months.
This is really cool. It's so nice to see how a company is doing Kubernetes deployments internally. So thanks so much for sharing.
All right. If you have any questions, let me know.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hi. Yeah. This is Scott. I have a quick question. I accidentally hung up instead of. Sorry about that. It was a really great presentation. The tool looks really cool. I was just curious. My very first thought about the parameter expansion, the Ruby parameter expansion, was, did you all consider switching that side of the application to using Helm and Helm's the Go templating? Or,
yeah. Actually, when we were looking at what to do for deploys, the first thing that we had done as a stopgap was just use a blind kubectl apply, and that caused problems for expected reasons, really. And then we investigated tools, including Helm, and I actually loved Helm's templating scheme. That's very nice. And we did at one point have a prototype. There's an open issue on Kubernetes-deploy about templating. But Helm, we love the templating piece, but the rest of the stuff wasn't doing anything really helpful for us, and so it was a lot of extra burden to take on to just get templating. So we were going to kind of build our own, we actually prototyped it like our own basically extracted version of its templating engine, but we decided to keep it simple for the beginning and just have, because we needed ultimately basically a couple of lines of ERB. Most people are not doing anything crazy, they're just templating in like the deployment ID or something like that, the revision. So we started out with that, and we're actually still there. And what we're thinking now is that we are going to want a fancier templating engine, but we probably won't build it into the tool. We'll build it as a separate tool that can be integrated, so that we keep the tool unopinionated and it can continue to be used with like vanilla Kubernetes definitions, no matter how you personally choose to generate those. That's our current thinking.
Gotcha. Thank you.
For the actual tooling itself, I'm noticing that the actual code base, it looks like it's written in Ruby.
It is.
What kind of libraries are you guys using, and how is the tooling around that for you guys when you're writing applications against Kubernetes in Ruby and in other languages that are not the primary or not the language and the libraries that are currently being used in Kubernetes? Was it an auto-generated library that was in Kubernetes and all that, or could you expand a bit more on that?
The reason it's written in Ruby is actually ultimately because it was born as an integration for Ship Engine, which is a Ruby project. And when we first wrote it, we wrote it directly in that project, and then we pulled it out. We are using, actually, it depends on which part. Most of it is actually just using kubectl. It's like shelling out to kubectl. Because,
okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. For one thing, we really wanted to use apply with everything that apply has to offer, and that is not available in the Ruby gem that is available, which is called kubeclient. The kubeclient gem is not the most mature. We do use it in some places in the code, and we're considering migrating over to it, even though we started with kubectl for pretty much everything. And for example, our test suite, we have a very large integration test suite that runs probably about 50 deploys whenever you run it, and covers all sorts of these different cases. And that is using the kubeclient gem 100%.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting tool in the sense that I personally haven't seen too many. If someone's writing a tool that's supposed to be running inside, or it's actually interacting with the Kubernetes API, I haven't seen too many actual tools being written in anything other than Go, just because of the shared libraries. So I think just the story itself of you guys actually writing this in Ruby and being able to communicate with the Kubernetes API, even with kubectl, I think it's a very interesting use case, or not a use case, but it's a very interesting story to unfold on that side as well. And just things like what problems you guys have had with Ruby and integrating with the API or with the entire ecosystem in general.
Yeah, most of the tooling we are writing is in Go. Like we have a bunch of custom controllers, for example, and those are all written in Go. Because, as you said, the APIs are much better to work with, much more first class in Go than they are in Ruby. Like we just have basically that either kubectl or this somewhat immature gem called kubeclient. So yeah, if I had to start again from scratch, would I write it in Go? Quite possibly.
Yeah, and we had the exact same problem. Disclaimer, I used to work for Deis, I now work for Microsoft, but the controller that we had, which was an API server, was written in Python, but we communicated with the Kubernetes API directly. We had written our own in-house like Kubernetes API client library, which was very ugly code, but it worked because it was like Kubernetes 1 point something, like it was 1.1 or something like that. I think it's very interesting to see that there's a couple of shops that are now actually doing this as well. I'd be interested in seeing if there's eventually ever kind of need for these kind of API layers or libraries that would be necessary for other people to write applications, not just in Go, but in other libraries as well, first class support. Anyways, that's just the thought I had.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Okay, thanks so much, Katrina. And we'll move on to the next demo, which is of Keel. Is there someone around to do a demo of Keel for us?
There. Well, good evening, good morning. I'm Carlos. Yeah, and I will just want to demo Keel. I have some slides, so I'll share my screen in a minute. Okay, can you see it? Can you see my screen?
I can see it.
Yes, we can.
Yes, so I work in Storage.js. I also have some side projects that use Kubernetes. And I had a use case where I needed some tools to actually upgrade my deployments once new images are available. So Keel is a continuous delivery tool. I didn't call it that way in the early days because it was just too simple. It's very lightweight, dateless. It has 0 dependencies, no database. In itself, Keel doesn't have neither CLI nor API. It just works directly through labels or Helm charts. You don't need to adopt or learn anything new. You just deploy. You use your own kubectl or Helm, and that's it. It's used quite a lot by several companies, even in production. So I have in plans to just set version 1 at some point, quite soon. Okay, so why? At first, I had a case where I was using GCR, Cloud Build, and just manage Kubernetes. So once you build an image, you push it somewhere, and then what? Something has to update it. So I tried automating it through some shell scripts at the end of the Cloud Build, but it all felt dirty. Looked at other tools like Spinnaker or Jenkins, and in my case, while running on really tiny F1 micro VMs, it was just those tools were just too big. So that's why I wrote Keel. Like initially, I chose an architecture where I can have like any number of triggers that go through sender policies and trigger any number of providers. So it started with Kubernetes, but then got some feature requests for Helm. And I think that was like really healthy for the project itself. Just a really good exercise of expanding it. And now, like, for example, if we wanted to add more deployment providers, even like from previous presentation like that Kube-deploy in Ruby, I think that could be possible. Once a new image is available, use that Ruby application to do it. So currently it looks something like this. Multiple registries are supported. You can get Slack notifications. You can use Slack to check your deployments. Both Kubernetes and Helm are supported as a providers. So I'll just show some configuration examples and a short demo. Okay, so main features is that it tries to be like self-configuring as much as possible. So if you just put it in your managed Kubernetes environment in like Google Cloud, it will set up, pops up subscriptions per cluster and topics. You don't have to do anything. Same with Docker Hub and Quay webhooks. You just point it to Keel. It has a simple endpoint to accept webhooks. No additional configuration required. If you don't have an ability to use webhooks, nor you're using GCR, but some like your own private registry or a registry that you don't have control to configure, then you can use polling. So Keel will discover secrets that are being used by Kubernetes to pull that image. So with those secrets, it will authenticate to the private registry, set up polling schedule, like 10 minutes or every 10 minutes or every hour or every day. It's up to you. And once a new image is available, like digest changes or a new sender version, a newer version is available, it will just pull it, trigger, and update it. Notifications are also there, so you can see when it's updating. Because in the first, it was also a bit annoying when, I tag a release in GitHub, but I wasn't aware when the update did happen or whether it happened at all. So notifications appear to be quite useful. This is, for example, Kubernetes deployment YAML. So the only thing that you have to set up is Keel SH label. Policy can be patch, just for patch versions, minor for minor versions, then major and all. And there's also this force policy And then whenever a new tag is available, we can push whatever, and it will just update it. Well, it makes sense, for example, if you have an image tag like alpha or beta that do not have any versioning at all. In Helm case, it's also really simple. This is a piece from values YAML. So in values YAML, you just set up a Keel configuration. How it works is that Keel calls directly to tiller, gets all the releases, scans for this specific Keel configuration in your values YAML, and based on that, it will try to find images that you care about for updates. So in this case, in here, like this image.repository, somewhere in the values YAML, you'll have to define that image repository is your repository. So a boring demo would be here. So what we'll be doing is, first of all, we'll create a new release. So I can just show you an example. Wrong repository. Okay, so this is it. This is Helm chart, values YAML. This is Keel configuration that we care about. This is our actual well, configuration. We'll be deploying this version, .14. And that's it. Then we'll also deploy Kiel. So what should happen is that Kiel will detect a new version of that deployment, because we have .15, and it should bump it to, well, the newest version available. So it will probably take up to like 10 or 15 seconds until it discovers it, until it checks the new image, because it doesn't check like every second. It could be modified to actually work with the watch functionality, like instead of just periodically scanning your releases or deployments, it could, well, watch for changes. So this is currently this version. Yes, it's still happening something. Okay, so new version is there, well, new revision. And that's it, new version is there. So yeah, that's pretty much it from the demo. It's really simple. As I said, like, you don't need to, well, use any other tools, just what you are already using. What's next is I'm currently working on approvals management, so you'll be able to say that, for example, this deployment or this release needs like at least 3 approvals, and it will be blocked until Kiel will receive those 3 or more approvals. Initial integration will be through Slack, because Kiel already has a few things. Well, in this case, where it is. Well, yeah. So it has basic chat support, only 1 command now. But the idea is that it will be presenting you with something like this. how many approvals are required, how many received. It's still work in progress. I hope to add this feature in the next few days. Then I'll also release version 1 because it's already being used in production by multiple companies. Then there was a lot of feature requests of like bring your own versioning, because quite a lot of companies use their own style of just setting versions for their applications. Then stateful set support, although that could be even now accomplished through Helm releases. And yeah, expand Slack support. So if you have any questions, I guess that would be the time.
Hey, Carol, this is Michael speaking. Awesome demo, and Keel is obviously very cool. Can you please link the slide deck, the presentation you just gave from the agenda, please? Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you for your demo. Okay. Very cool stuff. All right, we'll move on to stand-ups. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so first up, is anyone here to do a stand-up on Helm?
I can do one. This is Matt. So the Helm team's had a couple really cool changes happen in the last few weeks. At this point, I think since the last time I've done a stand-up in here, we now have 3 new core maintainers. Justin Scott, Matt Fisher, and Maciej Quick. All 3 of them are active contributors. 2 of the 3 are, I think, already in the top 10 list of contributors on Helm, so it's been really awesome to see them onboarded. This week is the release of Helm 2.6, which the focus has been on stability improvements, security improvements, and increased extensibility of the Helm platform. And we are already there are already a number of PRs open for 2.7. We've just been holding 2.6 open for one last bug fix. It looks like the patch is in and got LGTM'd over the weekend, so we should roll today or tomorrow, I'm hoping. So 2.7, the development cycle should kick off this week, and that's all I got.
Thanks, Butcher. Is anyone here to do a stand-up on Compose?
Yep, I'm here still after a long time here. So
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I wasn't sure. So yeah, on Compose, so we released version 1.0. There have been quite a lot of updates, mostly fixes. And now we are focusing more on the tests and improving basically version 3 support. There has been also a blog post on the official Kubernetes blog site, so that's up. That's all.
Awesome, thank you. And from the church team, do we have stand-up? I think Adnan is out, so if no one else is around, we'll just move on. App registry, what have you got?
So far for App Registry, we've been making steady progress towards getting client-side deployments working, and we expect our next release will actually run on top of Windows as well, natively. So that's everything on our plate for now.
Awesome, thank you. And it's been a while, but if anyone's around from Open Compose, tell us how that's going.
Yeah, so Open Compose got kind of rebooted into different project. So now there is a catch. I will paste the link into the docs because we had to take a little bit different approach. So now we are working on the catch, and we will demo it soon, I hope, here in the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. And draft, Fisher, you want to do a draft update for us?
Yeah. So last week, or last 2 weeks, I would say, we've been hard working on the draft 0.6.0 release, which is going to be mostly underlying infrastructure changes as well as some nice new features along in there. So the big tickets for the 0.6.0 release, which should hopefully come out sometime this week, is we're going to have a brand new plugin manager that allows you to install client-side plugins, manage them, install them, whatnot, similar to Helm plugins. So it's the same system that's being used over there. And then as well, we were seeing a lot of limitations with the WebSocket, or we were having connection issues with WebSockets. So it's myself, Michelle, and Brian, who are all from the Helm team as well. We're also going to be, Brian has worked and implemented and basically rewritten the entire WebSocket infrastructure to be using gRPC instead. And so we're playing around with that and prototyping. But that's all been merged into master, and so we'll be going through the 0.6.0 release sometime within this week. So that's our stand-up.
Awesome, thank you. And is anyone here from the Monocular team to give us an update on Monocular? Okay, I think that team overlaps with the charts team, and they're not here today. That's it for stand-ups. Does any other project want to give a stand-up? So we've had several demos in the last few weeks of projects that are not officially incubated, but you're welcome to give us an update on stand-ups, regularly. Just because you're not being incubated doesn't mean that you're not a part of the team and the community. So we want to know how you're doing. So if anyone is here and wants to give an update on their project, feel free to do so now.
Michelle, I don't have a demo, but when the 0.6.0 release comes out, there's this really neat feature that I'd like to show off in draft, the smart language detection. So on GitHub, there's this library called github.com /GitHub Linguist. And Linguist is basically the entire smart language detection that's being used on github.com. And someone's very nicely, they rewrote basically they generated the code over from Ruby over to Go, and we used it over in draft. So I think that would be kind of a cool demo to show off. I just don't have one available today.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Why don't you throw that on the agenda for whenever you see a demo slot open? We'd love to have that.
Okay.
I'll try not to be biased. I work on draft too, so. All right. Does anybody else have a stand-up or an update or something they'd like to talk about?
Yeah, and so Gareth here. Really quick update. I demoed kubeval, basically the Kubernetes validator for the config files. Probably a month ago now. Bunch of people have been using that. Bunch of sort of bug fixes. A lot of that is actually. There's a lot of conversations going on SIG API machinery. Anyone else who's trying to do anything with the open API specs will run into a bunch of the similar problems. There's a lot of lossiness between the specs, which also means any clients generated from that are have interesting issues. So I'm in the process of writing a whole bunch of those up, but I'm turning them into code where I can do. But yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone else who's working sort of directly against the open API specs or indirectly with some of the clients. I think someone mentioned the Ruby client earlier. Some of those issues are the open API spec issues. Yeah, apart from that, the tool's actually proving pretty useful. A bunch of people are using it, and there's examples now of people using it in CI systems. It's now available as a Go library, so I know some people were trying to integrate it into other tools. Yeah, quick update.
Gareth, Michael speaking here. In terms of schema validation and so on, I see that question coming up more and more often on Stack Overflow and Slack and whatnot. And I think people are not yet, in general, aware of the wonderful work you've been doing in the past. Do you have any idea what we could do about raising the awareness around that? So important.
Tell people, please. I think one of the things at the moment is it's fairly low level. I think people showing examples with the CI stuff, I think is interesting, because then it sort of goes, oh yeah, that's how you fit it into a workflow.
Right.
I think actually more useful and more like medium long term isn't going to be the separate tool bit. It's going to be the ability to do that in any tools that like higher level tools people are building, where they're already using them, and they get validation for free. Making it available as a library was sort of fairly recent. I know. I've forgotten the name of the tool that some people are hacking on. That they were like integrating it with. I'd love feedback on the library sort of interface, because that's like I'd love that to get changed to meet the needs of the high level tools.
Right.
And I think that, and the more that the Open API specs get improved, which is sort of conversation with API machinery, the more that the extractor gets turned into something that other people can use more easily. At the moment, it's a bit of a messy Python script. The better. But yeah, there's a bunch of things going on. If anyone else is interested in this, drop me a line, and happy to chat and find other things to do.
You aware of anyone working on, code integration, like Code or Atom or whatever editor?
So with editors, so I've got a demo that I need to turn into an actual public thing of doing it with VS Code, because there's actually a really good JSON schema for JSON schema for YAML plugin, and with basically adding a single line to the configs, you get a load of like fuzzy lines from the schema. I'm not aware of anyone doing similar with Atom, but if Atom has a JSON schema / YAML plugin, some of it will just work, but you need to know how to make it work, and I need to write that up.
Right. So I would just say whoever wins VI or Emacs, let's see. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Gareth. Does anybody have any questions for Gareth or anything else they want to add? Scott, you unmuted, so did you want to say something?
Well, I'm just trying to place my questions well. There's a lot of stuff to bring up, but Gareth, where would be a good place to ask you about some details about some of the validation? I had some questions earlier on about certain formatting best practices for Helm within Helm, but I realize it also can not just be for Helm, but can flow into other Kubernetes projects too. And it looks like your Butcher just mentioned that maybe it could be good to incorporate into Helm Lint perhaps at some point. And that reminded me of that question. And I know there were other questions too. I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds of the details here, but where would be a good place to follow up on those kinds of questions and maybe talking about that?
Good question. I need to, if someone pings me like a time I can be on Slack, and we could have find a few people to have a conversation. Cause I think there's probably a lot of, I've been specifically looking at Open API style validation, but there are other types of like linting and sort of tools. I've done some unit testing stuff as well, like that I want to package up in a similar way. But having those things so they can be used by high level bits like Helm and is, I think, of interest. So yeah, either Twitter Gareth R or Gareth at more7.net, or I'll try and get on Slack.
Thanks.
Somebody asked about a validation task force in chat. I think that was Michael. And yeah, that makes sense. And if you, Gareth, if you want to find a place, find a home for that kind of a task force, we'd love to be the home for that, or API machinery. But you're welcome, regardless, to use this Zoom link if you want to talk to people.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll have a think and have a chat with a few people who've sort of been interested here.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Very quick follow-up. I'm sorry, I won't take too long on this, but Michelle, since we had a similar ad hoc task force that we started as a group DM in Slack and then realized the limitations of that, do you think it would be plausible to work with one of the Slack admins to, spin up, a task force channel, and then not necessary. We can just yeah,
it's worth a try. So let's I'll chat with you offline about that. Well, Gareth, when you're doing your coordination, you can contact me, and then I'll work with you on trying to get that to happen.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Cool. Anybody else? We've got time, so feel free to ask questions. Okay, I'll take silence as no. Does anybody have any more stand-ups for today? All right. Well, if not, we can end a little bit early. Next week is August 21st, and we'll have one demo next week and a few discussion topics. If you threw up the discussion topics, please feel free to link to the proposals. And when you come next week, we'll be deep in Kubernetes, so just have a mindset of not so much high level, but more deeper than toolings and low level things. So just to give you a frame of reference there. And with that, that's all I got. Have a great week.
Bye now.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.